The Canadian Premier League side in Pacific FC have now signed on to and agreed to a deal that will change and alter the club's future, and this is a massive deal for Pacific FC, the Canadian Premier League, and Canada soccer as a whole, as Pacific FC have now agreed to a deal to become in a partnership with Bundesliga side VFL Bochum. That is right, you are not hearing me wrong. VFL Bochum, the Bundesliga side, have teamed up with Pacific FC in a strategic partnership plan. And this is extremely exciting and massive news for Canadian football as a whole, as this will connect Canadian players in a whole nother pathway to get into European football and to play abroad, as VFL Bochum are a very interesting side for Pacific FC to team up with. A side sitting in 14th in the Bundesliga and a great outlet and a great source for Canadian footballers to find themselves going through the Canadian stream to get into Europe. It's not an extremely top-level team like Atletico Ottawa and Atletico Madrid, but we've seen the wonders that partnering up with a top side from Europe can do, or even any side in general can do. Atletico Ottawa have created a huge powerhouse within Canadian soccer and a great outlet for players to make that switch and to push into Europe. We haven't seen it as much with Atletico Ottawa, but with the likes of Pacific FC and VFL Bochum, this is going to be extremely interesting. Bochum will be a great outlet for Canadian footballers to branch into Europe and to have that opportunity to be able to make that next step a lot easier. And this is a very good side to do that with, as it was reported from Transfer Market Manuel Veth earlier today that VFL Bochum and Pacific FC have teamed up into a strategic partnership plan, and this was of course also reported from Pacific FC, as it was also broken on Transfer Market that we're going to be taking quite a few quotes from, because there are some very interesting quotes coming from the likes of multiple higher-ups within VFL Bochum's board, and some great quotes from Transfer Market itself, as it went on to say that the partnership with the CPL team is part of VFL Bochum's international growth strategy and an important part of their Vision 100 plus growth plan. As the part of the plan, Bochum hope to achieve a financial turnover of at least 100 million euros. As part of the club's international growth strategy, Bochum have also signed up a partnership with the Japanese club Jubilo Iwata, which I probably butchered that pronunciation, but it's extremely interesting that Bochum have looked to Canada and the Canadian Premier League especially to continue that international growth strategy, because there's a lot of clubs who are adding on affiliate sides, who are having partnerships and are growing their side throughout that. You see of Manchester City, all their sides they have, whether it's New York, NYCFC, whether it's Girona, whether it's their sides they have within Ligue 1, they have great ways to grow their clubs, and they're doing it extremely well. And if Bochum are looking to do that throughout Canada, that's a great way and a great stepping stones for young Canadians. Just look at this Pacific FC side right now. There's a few Canadians you can pick out from, and a few players in general you can pick out from that could potentially make that jump to VFL Bochum. It's not an extreme jump either. We've seen Canadians make that jump to Europe already, and yes, this would be a jump to Bundesliga, which would be an extremely different level, but go to Bochum, maybe get a loan out, and maybe come back to Bochum. But there's some great players already playing for Pacific, and a few Canadians, especially in Sean Young and Emil Gazdov, who I think are terrific footballers and the best players Pacific has by a mile, who could easily make that jump. And I'm not going to say easily, that's a stretch, my apologies, but it would be a very interesting stretch for them to make that jump, and it's a great pathway now for those players to go to Europe and to have that option that VFL Bochum are looking to use the CPL and are looking to use Pacific as that outlet for players. But it's very interesting, some other quotes we got from VFL Bochum's higher up, as Bochum's Director of Marketing and Sales member of Executive Board, Tim Jost, went on to say the Canadian soccer market, and Pacific FC in particular, is an excellent fit for VFL's ambitions, not only because Canada will co-host the FIFA World Cup with the USA in 2026, we've had the Canadian Premier League on our radar for some time, and the market is right for us because its cultural proximity, among other things, and its potential is more than exciting here. We will take a holistic approach and strive for economic cooperation, educational partnerships, in addition to sport, which I find extremely interesting. I had to pick out some key quotes and some key parts from that transfer market article to be able to present to you guys here, because I really wanted to pick some of this stuff out, because I really find that stuff very key to read out and to look at and to dive into, as the fact that they're one of their higher ups on their board clearly, and their director of marketing, an executive board member, and Tim Jost, had to point out we've had the Canadian Premier League on our radar for some time, and the market is right for us with the cultural proximity. The fact that the Canadian Premier League and the CPL was on their radar for a very long time, I absolutely love to hear. So the fact that VFL Bochum is one of those teams that have been looking at the CPL for some time, and I might be butchering the pronunciation of Bochum, that is my fault, but I'm doing my best here, guys. I find that extremely interesting, because this is a league that is very young, that is really growing, and I think when you look into international football and you look to club football, a lot of clubs out there can see that Canada has something special right now, and we are very much an extremely untapped market. You look at players like, yes, you can see Davies, Jonathan David, Tajon Buchanan coming through the university system, Alistair Johnston. These are players that you wouldn't have saw years ago, and there's a pathway for them now, especially players like Tajon Buchanan. There's probably clubs out there thinking, this guy came from the university setup and there wasn't eyes on him before. Let's get out there, let's make a partnership with some of these professional clubs, and let's get finding these top talents. Eventually, we're going to see Vancouver FC have a partnership plan, because you look at the CPL right now, VSC are one of those top teams right now of extreme youth of talent, and they're all Canadian. We are an extremely untapped market right now, and the fact that there's lots of clubs, especially in those top leagues, looking within the CPL, it's a very interesting, and I think this is the first of many sides to become partnerships with other teams. And you could say this isn't the greatest thing, but we got to look at the Canadian Premier League as a sell-on league, as a growing league, as a stepping stone league, as you would call it. And yes, it's not as big of a stepping stone league as the MLS, but if we're going to use teams like VFL Bochum, like Atletico Madrid, for instance, to partner up with CPL teams to help us with that next step into Europe, these are the perfect clubs to start doing that with, and I absolutely love it. And there's so much more to talk about here, but I want to dive into what Josh Simpson, the president of Pacific FC, went on to say today, as he had a very interesting line, as he said this, quote, "This partnership breaks new ground and will further close the gap from Canada to one of the best footballing nations in the world. We are proud to build this bridge to VFL Bochum for our players as well as our operating staff to learn further their supporting careers. The Bundesliga is without question one of the best leagues in the world, and we are excited to this step." I absolutely love what Josh Simpson said there, and he waxes lyrical. That is beautiful what he said there. The fact that he says this partnership breaks new ground and will further close the gap from Canada to one of the best football nations in the world, I absolutely couldn't agree with him more. Yes, we've seen a partnership with Atletico Ottawa and Madrid, but this is a different level. Bochum is a player that these players can look at and make that jump to. It's not an unrealistic move. This is a team that could bounce down to Bundesliga 2, that could bounce up to Bundesliga, and it's a team that has done brilliant things at selling on footballers as well. If you look at VFL Bochum and players that they've brought through the system who they've sold on, for example, just to name a few, Leon Goretzka came through VFL Bochum, who went on to FC Schalke, to where he had his fantastic career with Bayern Munich. Armel Bella-Kotchap, who moved on to Southampton. There's even the likes of Lucas Klosterman. There's Terode. There's some brilliant names that have come from VFL Bochum, and if these Canadian players have now that option to go from Pacific FC to have that bridge and that stepping stone to the Bundesliga, to a side that is extremely realistic for them to make that jump, is a great thing. And the fact that I also love what Josh Simpson says about how our staff to learn and further their sporting careers so that they can take pieces of what VFL Bochum are doing and implement it into Pacific FC, into their club, into their staff, into their scouting, into their front office. It's going to do worlds of good for Pacific, but also for the Canadian Premier League, because we're going to see it filter throughout the league, and we're going to see it filter mostly through Pacific, and how well this club is going to start to improve and start to carry on throughout their further career. So this is probably one of the biggest moves I've seen in Canadian soccer. It's not a transfer, but it is a partnership, and I'm absolutely loving it. One thing and one quote I really wanted to look into was the likes of VFL Bochum's managing director and sport, Patrick Fabian, who said this: "The Canadian soccer market is one of the top up-and-coming markets in men's soccer and will continue to develop rapidly with a view up to the 2026 World Cup. Canadian women's soccer has already been among the international leaders for years, and we will therefore certainly be able to benefit from each other." So this is extremely exciting. I absolutely love this. The fact that they're praising our market, praising Canadian soccer, praising the untapped talent, you can tell VFL Bochum has had their eyes on Canadian soccer for some time. And the fact that they say that Canada's soccer market is one of the up-and-coming markets in men's soccer is very exciting, because it tells you that there's so many clubs out there, and that VFL Bochum are so excited to get their hands on this untapped talent in Canada. It just gives you that excitement that they're going to use Canadian talent, that they're going to make that bridge for Canadian players to find their way into Europe and help Canadian players find their way into Europe. And also there's a quote out there how he talks about how our women's national team is one of the best for leaders for years, and they'll be able to learn from that as well. And that is huge. So they're learning from us, from our women's game, and how our women are at the top of the international game, and they're going to take that level and bring it to Germany, bring it to their club level with VFL Bochum, but they're also going to help out our men's game. It's a bit of you help us, we help you, you scratch our back, we scratch yours, and it's a beautiful hand-in-hand partnership, and the fact that we're able to do this is brilliant. I've never been the biggest fan of Pacific, but I'm loving what they're doing here, and it's not just going to help Pacific and what the CPL are doing, but it's going to help the entire league improve and continue to get better, and it's probably going to bring more clubs looking at the likes of Vancouver FC, Cavalry FC, Forge, and make more stepping stones for Canadian footballers to be able to make that jump to play in European competitions. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments about VFL Bochum teaming up and partnering with Pacific FC. Make sure to drop a like, hit the comment section, and hit that subscribe button, guys, because we're moving so much closer to 300 subscribers. And tomorrow morning, we'll also be having an Io Akinola video on his departure from Toronto FC and where he should go next. Let me know what you guys think of the video, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Peace.